Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, things seem to be moving along nicely for President-elect Donald Trump, who just got some confirmation on what we suspected was going to be a clean sweep. It's now official. House, Senate, White House, all firmly in Team Red. Also breaking news is John Thune. You just heard Kimberly James explain who the new leader of the the Senate is going to be. John Thune. I don't know if that's anybody's first choice, but I imagine most people out there, maybe even you, don't have a level of depth of knowledge about John Thune to have a strong opinion either way. But we'll go through his record a little bit on today's show, and I'll just let you make that opinion on your own, because some people are going to like it, some people aren't. I'm not thrilled about it, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about foreign policy real quick. Jeffrey Brodeur is back on from Rigaku Analytical Devices, and Trump has announced he's going to have maximum pressure on Iran once he returns to the White House. Now, this could be an escalation, or, Jeffrey, is this going to be a situation like when Ronald Reagan came to office, Iran just bowed down?
Hey, it's good to be back with you. I appreciate the invitation. No, it's actually going to be a page out of the Trump book, his first administration with North Korea. And it's not necessarily an escalation in power. It's a carrot and the stick, and it's a whole of government approach. And we normally refer to them as levers of power. It's diplomatic, information, military, and economic. And then you can weave in their cyber operations if you want and will. But it's an effort to influence an adversary to acquiesce or to make rational decisions if they're not.
Well, if his drilling policies are going to cost the Iranians billions of dollars, are they still going to have an incentive to give him a hard time?
So the issue with Iran is they're a big bully in the Middle East, and they have the axis of resistance, and they're stirring up trouble and chaos. And right now they've got their eyes targeted on Israel. This is more of a bring the temperature in the Middle East down to a reasonable temperature, not necessarily a fossil fuel issue. But it's interesting to note Iran is mostly unable to process its own fossil fuel, so that they may have hundreds of gallons of oil, but very little of it is processed gasoline. Right, so they've got to export all of that someplace else and buy the gasoline. So one of the levers of power is to restrict, constrain import-export on all of those goods and services. And last time I read, I think about 90% of the Iranian economy funding stream comes from fossil fuels. Another way to do it is just freeze their accounts, have Department of Treasury generate a network of allies being banking systems like we did with North Korea during George Bush, the son, during his era against North Korea, so that it's impossible for them to exchange money, either pay somebody to do something or receive money. If we're able to put financial transactions in a chokehold, then we'll see support to the axis of resistance come to a screeching halt.
So sanctions are going to return, and this seems kind of obvious and voluntary. How come we're not doing it already?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Some diplomats believe you need a little more carrot than stick. Other diplomats believe a big stick and a little carrot is the answer. I think the answer to that riddle depends on who your adversary is. And I think it's clear that the last administration got it wrong.
Are we seeing movement in other foreign policy fronts? I saw a headline that Gaza wants to talk. I mean, do you think something's going to happen there?
Oh, I think across the board. I think President-elect Trump walks in. He's, as they say, crazy like a fox. He's an amazing negotiator. You don't know, what card he's going to play. And so he uses deterrence and good tidings, all in sort of the same breath. So you have no idea if you're going to get your backside slapped or you're going to get, he's going to shake your hand. And I think that's the genius of it. I think you're going to see, as he described, a direct impact in Gaza because they know that their backs are up against the wall. And with President Trump's full support, Israel could eliminate that problem in a few short days, if not a couple weeks. I think Ukraine is going to settle down. I think Putin has the utmost respect. And I think Zelensky is out of options. I think the romance associated with funding a war that is not in our national interest but is very interesting has gone away, mostly because of inflation. We want the money back here for our domestic environment. And I think, again, we talked about Iran. I think North Korea is going to play favor with them, and I think China still has the scar tissue from his tariffs the last term, and they, I think, are going to be the first to get in line.
Well, you're with Rigaku. If I need XRF spectrometer, can you get me a good deal?
I can get you a great deal. Here's what's great about our devices. Here's what's great about our devices, and we haven't really talked about it. The State Department Arms Control report that came out last year still indicates that Iran has a robust chem, bio, and radiological weapons inventory. I think the debate is out on nuclear. They're probably very, very close based on what I read. But imagine if you have an unknown chemical warfare agent in a transparent or translucent container. Within less than a minute, our device can assess the character of that solid, liquid, or powder and give you a report on exactly what it is within above 90% confidence rate. It fundamentally changes how our CBRN technicians conduct their surveys because now they have information at the tip of their fingers that used to take 6 to 8 months.
That's pretty cool stuff. We might have to do a segment on how those things work one day. I nerd out on a lot of those documentaries, and I hadn't seen one on spectrometers yet. So maybe.
Yeah, it's really amazing science. It really is.
Agreed. Thank you.
It fits in your hand in your backpack. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you, Jeffrey. RIGAKU.com. I know someone out there in a metropolitan area of 7 million people. Someone's looking for a spectrometer. 800-288-9227. If you got any comments on the news of the day, first off, John Thune is going to be your Senate Majority Leader. We have Marco Rubio is going to be your Secretary of State. Now, it's not all official yet. This is just what's been announced. A few other announcements coming down, a few other policy positions. This is coming out of this guy like a fire hose, and I'll get you all caught up in about 5 minutes on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Something that's been projected for days and days has now been confirmed. It is official. The House of Representatives is going to be controlled by the Republicans. The majority was certified or finalized or whatever the proper term is. And so the projection is now fact. Trump's going to have the Senate, the House, and the White House. Now, it's not a filibuster-proof Senate, and it may not be the most limited government conservative guy that's now the new Senate Majority Leader, or it will be as soon as January rolls around. But here's the deal. John Thune is the guy that is going to take that controls whether or not anything that gets passed from the House will be brought up in the Senate. So he could be a bad gatekeeper there. It has happened. Mitch McConnell's done that. They've passed bills out of the House that you wanted to see the Senate, at least if it wasn't going to pass, at least bring it up, force a vote on it, make them vote it down. Nah, I wouldn't even bring it up. This is one of the things you hate about Mitch McConnell. I have not a lot of optimism that John Thune is going to be much better. However, if you're just a swamp creature, if you're just a slave to the polling and what public pressure dictates, then if we have public pressure campaigns, this guy can roll. So there's possibilities there. The bigger concern is going to be the filibuster. Without 60 votes, Democrats should be able to filibuster anything that they're dedicated to stopping. And if the Republicans want to pass something the majority of Democrats don't like, they're going to have to peel off, 7 of them? 6 or 7 of them to get the tiebreaker to J.D. Vance. So that's good. Not great, but good. Better than the alternative. And seeing as how both the House and the Senate are going to be controlled by Team Red, that means both floors, whatever gets voted on, should be favorable to Team Red. So look, round of applause there. Another small win. We have some more appointments that are coming down. If you have a comment on any of this, by the way, 800-288-9227. Are you concerned about any of these picks? Marco Rubio being Secretary of State, being Secretary of State, a little bit of a concern. You know, we learned about him when he ran for president, and then also the way he's voted in the Senate, that he's a guy that's he kind of likes war. He doesn't mind it. He's not a big fiscal conservative either. If there's a government shutdown, he'll take whatever deal it takes to get the government back on, even if there's no spending cuts in there. Yeah, so a guy who's not a fiscal conservative, a guy who is also a war hawk, and a guy who's not a dedicated vote. This is the guy that's Secretary of State. We couldn't have a peacenik as Secretary of State. Because I suspect you may be a little more ideologically leaning toward like the type of Republican personified by a Rand Paul or a Mike Lee, if you watch it that closely. He is not one of those guys. That's one of the guys you want in foreign policy. Because that's what Secretary of State basically is. And that's one of the guys you want, not a warmonger. You want a peacemonger. You want a diplomat, a guy who says, look, whether we get the ideal situation or not, I'd rather just avoid war. What can we do to work this out? So I have a little bit of concern there. I have a little bit of concern about John Thune. I'm not going to pretend like I know this dude inside and out, but I'm asking you, are you concerned about any of these picks? So we have a couple of announcements on policy as well. I thought it was pretty cool yesterday how he talked about some things he wanted to do with academia. The other one I wanted to bring you today is coming from one of his picks already, this Tom Homan guy. He was talking with David Webb on Sirius Satellite Radio, which kind of warms my heart because way back in the day, that's the station I was on. Oh, but this is the kind of guy you want in your border czar. This is sort of the no holds barred approach, which I don't understand the pushback on this. Like when they say, if you're going to do a mass deportation effort, you're going to get a lot of people, some people who mow your lawn, some people who are moms and dads, and some people who work in the kitchen at your favorite restaurant. Yeah, we're aware of that. We know that they're not just ethereal concepts of human beings. They're real people with real jobs, but they broke the law and we just want the law to be enforced. Do you say that about other crimes? Do you say that about, I know he robbed a bank, but it's the guy that mows your lawn. Do you really want to get rid of him? Look, I'll find someone else to mow my lawn. It's not that big of a deal. Well, you know what that's going to do? That's going to cause everything, the cost of mowing your lawn to go up. Those guys are going to have the people that replace them are going to be paid more. The people in the kitchens at your favorite restaurants, they're going to have to be paid more. And that's going to cause the cost of things to go up. All these other workers, whether it's construction or maintenance or whatever else you want to ascribe to them, the cost of that stuff's going to go up because the wages are going to go up. It's like, okay. So now we've got you complaining about wages for working class going up. This is a wonderful hole you've dug yourself. Oh, you've got me on that one. Oh, yeah, that's so terrible. The working class people are going to have higher wages and more employment opportunities. Boy, why didn't I think of that? And I think that's kind of what Tom Homan's thought process is in this answer on Sirius yesterday. This is your new border czar, Tom Homan.
Tom, a question about resources that will be used. Obviously, ICE agents have been under the Biden-Harris administration, put in different roles, basically babysitting and processing. How do you realign and use the available resources? Will this require additional, not just cooperation with local and state law enforcement, but what about National Guard or any other resource that's necessary to get this deportation done?
Look, we can always use additional resources. And Border Patrol's down staffing, ICE is down staffing. A lot of guys retired early or left because they weren't able to do the job they took an oath to do. So we need more manpower. So, for instance, DOD has helped several administrations on the border. They could be a force multiplier. And I don't mean, I saw an article today. Tom Homan says U.S. Army is going to be going to cities arresting people. Never said that, never will. But the military, the DOD, could be used to help relieve law enforcement officers from administrative duties so they can get on the street and do what they're supposed to be doing. For instance,
all right, so that is, I love this argument too. Tom Homan says, well, we're going to have to get some help from the military. We just don't have the manpower. And so they're supposed to be, it's almost like anything Team Red says, the headline is, that's awful. But can you imagine people are outraged because we're going to be using our military to defend our border instead of some distant border on the other side of the planet? They're like, this is an outrage. He's going to put the military on the border. It's like, yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. More so than protecting the Ukraine's border, or more so than protecting the Gazan Israeli border, or more so than protecting the border in Afghanistan. And my God, that's the first thing it's supposed to do is our border. It's not an anomaly. It's not a freakish thing. It's not something you should be scared of. It should be the most normal thing in the world. That's what all armies in every country on the planet do, defend their border. Relax, people. It's going to be okay. You're going to be just fine if we enforce our border laws. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, are younger buyers being priced out of the housing market? Is the American dream out of reach for too many? We will ask the host of Texas Real Estate next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Bob Lavelle, Home Marketing Services, been partner on The James Show for almost a year now, but I've known him for over 20 years. And here's what I like, Bob. I like hearing the success stories about people who've heard you on my show and then made it happen in getting a home.
You know, there were quite a few of them, actually, this year that closed on their home. And, you know, the thing is, they all have good backstories, and you wish you had time to tell the backstory. But I did bring a group of them in a week or so ago to give their little bit about how they got into their home. And one of them, I think, that's playing on your station today in one of our spots, she's the one that the realtor, and you and I talked about this, the realtor told her she would need $100,000 down before she could help her, which was pretty foolish. The realtor was just trying to dump her because she heard Social Security income. There was a lot of other income the realtor didn't ask about. The lady came in, bought a beautiful 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. She closed in like 30 days, and we also talked about some of the young kids that came in. They came in because their dad was listening to your show. And one of them, Amy, she recorded some stuff for us too, and her hubby, John. They were absolutely great. They just didn't think they could do it from what they were told by other people. They came in. It really wasn't a difficult thing to do, and they got moved into their new home. So this next few weeks, you're going to hear a lot of our clients telling their story, and you and I talked about most of them.
Right, and this is much better than the sketchy stories I hear from some of my friends who go out, and it turns out the realtor they got was someone who failed out of another career, went to 3 months of night school to get some license, and now they're supposed to be an expert. But Bob's been doing this for decades, so don't get slipped up picking the wrong guy. Call Bob, 972-392-9595, 972-392-9595. I promise Bob has put more people in houses than that other person you're thinking of. 972-392-9595. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, James.
Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay, let's go. All right, so Donald Trump's legal situation isn't quite concluded yet, but it seems to be wrapping down just all on its own. I don't understand why Jack Smith is winding down his cases. I thought there were some real crimes here that need to be brought to justice, accountability. No one's above the law. What happened to all that? Before I ask a guy who actually knows the answers to some of those questions, my next guest, Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. We're going to go back in the time machine here. Garrett brought the flux capacitor. We're going to go back to 2018. In 2018, this news service, Grabian, noticed the word bombshell and threats that the walls are closing in and he's not going to finish out his first term and he's on his way to jail. It had been a hyperbolic media narrative for only 18 months. I mean, the guy had only been in office for a year when this was made, and then let's get another 6 months of election time in there. So over just the first 18 months, look at how many times they were declaring this guy over, done. His campaign's over. He's going to jail. Walls closing in. There was all kinds of, you'll hear the word bombshell like 1,000 times. Yet here we are, 6 years later. He went through his whole first term. He finished his first term. Never got kicked out. Never got impeached. The walls weren't closing in. He never went to jail. None of the bombshells turned out to be bombshells. And then he had 4 years off. And then when he announced he's running for president again, magically, just out of the manna from heaven, there was 94 charges against the guy. And then we had to hear it again. Walls are closing in. Another bombshell report. Probably going to jail. Won't finish out his term. Still hasn't happened. I just want to whet your appetite here before we go to Jeremy and just remind you how hyperbolic and how long this narrative has gone. And for all these people claiming he's going to go to jail like 8 years ago, he's still not going to jail.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump.
The beginning of the end of the Trump presidency. Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
It reminds me a lot of the last days of Nixon.
Breaking news tonight, new bombshell.
This is the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The walls are closing in.
The walls closing in.
The wall's closing in.
Breaking overnight bombshell.
This is a very dramatic day, and I think it might be near a tipping point. Do you think this is a tipping point?
This is unbelievable. This is remarkable. Have you ever seen anything like this?
His presidency is crippled.
December 1st, 2017, you can mark it down. This is the day that everything changed.
2017.
Bombshell.
The beginning of the end?
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end. The beginning of the end.
In fact, if this were a football game, we're in the third quarter. May even be the beginning of the end.
We begin tonight with the bombshell.
Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Trump is in trouble.
The president will resign.
Another hour, another bombshell.
This is a tipping point.
Trump's going down.
This president could be impeached.
I do not think the president will serve out his term. Resignation. I don't think this president is going to serve out his term. Mr. Trump will not serve out his term. He will not serve out his term. No way. No how.
No
Breaking
way.
news.
Absolute bombshell. I think Donald Trump is in trouble.
Donald Trump is not. He's done. And it's over. It's over.
The wall's closing in.
The wall's closing in.
This is going to be the Achilles heel.
Breaking news tonight. I expect Trump to depart. This week will be the watershed week. Trump is in big trouble.
Trump's in a lot of trouble.
It's a sign of a terrified old man who feels the walls closing in.
The walls
Are increasingly
Closing in on him.
Tonight, the walls
are closing in.
today changed everything. This is the beginning of the end. Today, the biggest
Tipping point for the Trump administration.
What a historic day. The bombshells, they fell.
It's entropy and it's crumbling internally.
He's underwater. He feels the walls closing in.
Could his testimony be a turning point?
We may be at a tipping point.
It's the beginning of
The end.
The beginning
of the end.
Another bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell. Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell. This is a bombshell. It is a bombshell.
I am beginning to resent the word bombshell.
None of them turned out to be bombshells. And if I could go back in time, I'd love to tell all those people in 2017, hey, this dude's going to be your president through 2029. Just, I'm from the future. Just want to let you know that and see if they stroke out. Jeremy Rosenthal, thanks for coming back on the show. Am I too confident? Because it looks like Trump's not going to go to jail.
He's not going to go to jail. I don't think. I mean, anything can happen legally. The judge could put him in a slammer for 20 years. I could get struck by lightning and looking outside right now. If that's going to happen, well, it's not going to happen today. But yeah, another delay, and that's the way this is going. And I think my money is on this getting pushed out past 2029. Judge could dismiss it. I doubt he would. But again, I mean, anytime I can walk my client out of the courthouse, and it's a win. And anytime I can get a delay, it's a win.
So what's the new info here? I don't understand the rationale for wrapping up a case. I mean, if a serious crime was committed here, why would you just throw in the towel?
Well, what happened this week was that Donald Trump's lawyers filed a handful of motions, a kind of a kitchen sink, if you will, for the judge was set to decide whether or not he was going to keep the case, throw the case out based on the immunity rulings. And he was set to do that yesterday. Trump's lawyers said, here's 44 reasons why this shouldn't happen. Reasons, small, medium, and large, hey, we need to deal with China first. He's going to be the president, this kind of thing. And Alvin Bragg's office if nothing else, they read the room and they said, well, we're going to consider this, and we don't want to interfere with the transfer of power. We don't want to jail the person who has just been elected to be the leader of the free world. So we'll think about it. And Judge Merchan gave them, I think, until the 19th, the people of New York, the state, if you will, to put their official response in writing to see what it is that they want to do to wrap this case up. So that's what we're waiting on.
And how many cases we have left besides this one?
Well, you've got the federal, you have them all, but really other than the Georgia case, they're all going to sort of shrivel up and die, if you will. The January 6th prosecution, you've got Jack Smith, who is winding those down at the moment.
Yep.
If he does not dismiss them, Matt Gaetz will, and if Jack Smith doesn't resign, if Matt Gaetz is confirmed as the new U.S. Attorney General, you would anticipate he's going to fire Jack Smith. There are some impediments there, but not major ones. In the Georgia case, that's another state case. That thing is bogged in the mud, and who knows if we'll ever see that thing again. But again, hey, you know what? I mean, look, if you, I'm advising all my clients to run for president because, man, it's pretty good to beat 93, 94 felonies. I mean, that goes on the webpage.
That's a heck of a winning streak there. Well, we don't really have a precedent for this, do we? Precedent or precedents, whatever I'm trying to say.
All first-time territory. It really is. And some of the arguments that Trump's team made were that, look, I mean, you've got a supremacy clause issue here. You know, you cannot have the state of New York jailing the commander in chief. I have no clue if that's right. That is an argument but we've never had to consider, and they may very well be right. We don't know. It's just the first time we've ever had this issue, and it's not going to come down to any of that. I mean, again, Alvin Bragg and his team. I mean, look, they came out and say, you know, if I told the DA's office, hey, my guy's taking a new gig, can we revisit all this in 5 years?
5 years, right? That ain't happening.
We're not doing that. Alvin Bragg's team came back and said, okay, well, sure, we'll think about it. You know, so. I mean, look, anytime you lose a jury verdict, you're behind the eight ball. But look, reasonable minds are going to prevail here, and this is going to be, somewhere between him getting hit with a feather and a footnote in history.
All right. Well, Jeremy Rosenthal, thanks for explaining the details behind the headlines we've been seeing. Find him at texasdefensefirm.com, and then you can judge him based on his appearance. Thank you, Jeremy.
Bye.
Later. All right, coming up next, we have a report now from a private firm concluding DART is ripping off the taxpayers across 13 cities here in North Texas. You'll hear details on the size of what's probably the most monumental waste of tax money in DFW history. I'm James Parker. That's next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Well, the Trump administration is starting to take shape. Trump administration 2.0, I should say. And this is a pretty breakneck speed for making appointments and whatnot. Now, usually we get all this information slowly trickled in over the holidays. And here we are. It's only been a week, and we have a lot of the major pieces already on the chessboard. However, that was one complaint a lot of people rightfully had about Trump's first time in the White House, is some of his appointments didn't work out so great. Is he doing better this time around? Let's ask my next guest, the great Raven Harrison. You fell in love with her on election night doing some great live coverage there. What do you think about the appointments thus far, Raven?
They are awesome, and you are right. They're going at breakneck speed. This is what President Trump said. This is the one thing he used to say before that I love was promises made, promises kept. He said he would start trying to fix this from day one, and that is what he has done. He is inspiring people. He is not messing around. He's going to make every day of this administration count.
What about John Thune? I know that's not a Trump appointment, but we just found out today that the Senate Majority Leader is going to be a guy who used to be in the Never Trumper camp.
No, that's just proof that the swamp is deep and wide. So, yes, the biggest issue I have with that is outside of, his declared comments against President Trump in the past, is we really don't have the time to do the tango of the 2 steps forward and the 2 steps back. We have got to be moving forward, and we can't have obstructionists and never Trumpers and people who really just want to hang on to the establishment. There was a huge campaign for Rick Scott, and that is what the people wanted. He was the only one with a really clear vision of how he was going to kind of reform the Senate and change how things were done. And that was the main reason I was extremely disappointed that he was installed, because it showed that Republicans were not listening to their constituents. I mean, Elon Musk did a poll, and I think it was like 72% of the people polled, and I can't remember, got millions of votes, wanted Rick Scott. So again, the swamp just kind of rallied around, but so far he's stepping out, but he is not going to get the leeway that McConnell get. We're not going to have 20 years of the next sequel of Frozen.
Right. Well, at least it wasn't John Cornyn, I think. Is Thune worse than Cornyn?
Want to be shot or stabbed, James.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Tomato.
Let's do some of these other appointments. Marco Rubio bother you?
It doesn't, but they're saying that that's not been completely confirmed. I'm not sure why we don't have clarity on that, but I think it's
because Trump hasn't said it, right? But we've had other people tell their little media friends that it'll be Marco Rubio. But he's kind of war hockey for the Republicans, out on the spectrum. He's more on the pro-war side, and that kind of worries me for Secretary of State.
Well, correct, and we need some consistency. We don't need the people who are flapping in the wind. But I think Tulsi Gabbard, if I'm correct, as the director of intelligence, amazing. Matt Gaetz, firebomb for Attorney General. Woo! I do love Ken Paxton, so I imagine he's a little disappointed, but I think it's a great choice. Elon Musk, bravo. I mean, that should be the one everyone's excited about, James, is we actually have somebody in real time showing how much waste the American taxpayers have been funding in this government, in this archaic dinosaur government, and for how long?
Well, I hope they act on that quick, because it's not a monumental task. Well, we're going to try and see if we can take down this giant animal. No, just say Department of Education. It's cut. It's over. We don't have to go through it and do an audit and find out where the waste is. Just fire everybody, sell the building back to the private sector. You could probably turn it into a nice set of lofts or maybe some office space. But yeah, I don't think it's that complicated. Just giant swaths of the government need to go away.
I think we should do it the way that the president of Argentina did, that whiteboard, and they had little stickies of different departments.
Oh, you're talking about one of my heroes?
That's gone.
Javier Milei. Afuera!
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, so for you, those of you who hadn't seen it, they put like a little algorithm chart, like a flow chart of all the agencies, and he went through and he ripped more than half of them off. And that's how I feel about our national government. Like, really, we need a housing and urban development. What even is that, Raven?
They don't know. It's another way to launder the money. And this is the one thing I tell people is the patriots, especially in Texas, who showed up, who voted, you should feel great right now. It is happening. We are going to get this back on track in a government we can be proud of. It is happening. So everybody should feel really great. And then we got to keep the fire, on these people to make sure it does not go back to the swamp, because they're in the wings for 28.
I hear you on that one. So any disappointments at all thus far, Raven?
Well, other than Senate Majority Leader, but right now they're still coming. And I think it's been, great. The Secretary of Defense, amazing. Chief of Staff, that shuts down the whole, oh my gosh, he's terrible to women, except who has the highest profile job. So it's going to be great. And I so far, I'm not disappointed. Some of them you just have to trust Trump, but he's obviously demonstrated. He said it would be different, and it is.
I was expecting there to be some sort of weird crossover pick. And I'm thinking like a more reasonable member of Team Blue, like a Mark Cuban or something to that effect. Maybe even an Oprah or something.
Not this time, only because last time he was trying to be the great peacemaker. He was trying to make both sides happy. This time, he's just trying to make America happy.
All right. Raven Harrison, where do they find your work outside of WBAP?
They can find me at theroarmission.com or ravenharrison.com or on social media as Raven the Conservative Warrior.
Go get them. Thanks, Raven.
Thanks, James.
All right, next up is what was that? Yesterday, a big Dallas real estate developer pleads guilty to bribing city council members. Now, I'm not going to say what he did was right and wasn't illegal, but I'm going to give you my sympathetic take on why this guy, look, of course, it was illegal, but he's just playing the game. He's just following the rules as they're set. He's not the problem. I'll tell you what the real problem is in 5 minutes. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Wait, James is defending a guy that's bribing politicians? Kinda. It'll make sense. Just stick with me. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.